as I said before, I just wanted money, and then when I very, very, very first started, I didn't have any concept whatsoever of how to do a pre-session consultation. I was just threw myself in the deep end. Let's say I'm not risk adverse in my life. I just I'm just willing to give something a try. Um, so I'd had these experiences where people would call up on the phone, and actually when I very, very, very first started, I was in the country towns because I thought, oh, I'm not the right body type, I'm not the right beauty. I'll just go to the country towns where they're going to be less fussy and put an ad in the newspaper with my friend and say,
That's how you
you know,
started.
yeah,
You just
busty
went to a
blonde,
country town, put an ad in the newspaper.
yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Found a hotel room that was not going to kick us out, which is a big deal in of itself. And they're not always nice, those hotel rooms. They're a bit sleazy. And then you'd get these phone calls with people who were already in the altered state of consciousness of desire. Because you are in an altered state when you're in a state of desire and you're sexually aroused. You think differently. You experience your own senses differently. Your logic is different. The way you treat yourself and other people is different. So we think of these altered states as these, going on a plant medicine expedition in the forest and in the jungle, like you were talking about with your plant medicine, and that is an altered state. But we move through altered states all the time. Even the rage is a change of consciousness, isn't it? Going into rage. Same with desire. Anyway, so they're not in relationship with their desire. These people who were calling me on the phone, they have no understanding about this. They're not in embodiment relationship at all. So they're saying, I can remember one in particular, one guy saying, he's a farmer, he's like, what do you look like? Do you take it up the shitter? And that's all he said to me on the phone. So this is all I know about him before I turn up to the door.
Oh. Oh.
So I didn't start at the sophisticated end, right? And so I turned up anyway. I went, okay, I'm going to go. So there's me in my panel van driving through. This is back when we had paper maps, not GPSs. So it was some time ago now, and I'm trying to find this damn farm in the driving down there.
Oh, you went to the
And
farm. You didn't go to the
yeah, I
hotel.
went to the farm. No, I went to
Hmm.
an out call. That's called an out call rather than an in call. If they come to us, it's an in call. It's an out call
Hmm.
if we go to them. And I had my own. I won't go into the security stuff, but yes, we had security in place. There's a yeah, we're not silly, but but I went there, and as soon as I opened the door, he sees a real person in front of him. It's different. It's like, oh, you're not just the fantasy in my head that I can just say, do you take it up the shitter? Just there's a human being in front of me, and at that point, I shifted the power dynamic. I learned how to do that really quickly, like I'm leading, thanks, and the whole experience went from there. And we ended up, walking through his house and full of dogs and couches that are floral and upstairs to a bedroom. And this was just vanilla sex, right? But it was dirty sex as far as he was concerned. It was taboo. It was from his fantasy. And I followed what was the underlying, I trusted his fantasy, and I went within my own boundaries. I didn't actually take it up the shitter. I didn't want to. So, but I found what was behind that desire and played with it. And I just did it all intuitively. And I followed it. And by the end, this really, really strange thing happened. Then it kept happening. These things, we were both crying. We were both looking into each other's eyes, so touched and crying, and our hearts expanded, and he's looking at me with tears rolling down his face, going, "What was that? I didn't think since my wife had died that I could ever feel that again. What was that? What was that?" And I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. But wow, what was that? Where did we go just then? What and how did we get there? And then I shrugged and left and never saw him again. And but this experience kept happening. Not every time, but it kept happening. And I kept being really curious about that. Why are we ending up in these heart expanded states of consciousness where our guards are fully down and we're just feeling connected, and we're there's feels like a transcendent experience, or maybe a better word, transcendent sounds like up, and so there's levels of hierarchy. It could be an expanded state of being. That might be a better way of saying it. More of us was awake and was there. What was happening? So this got me really intrigued. So I started trying to learn from anyone in the world. I learned from some of the world's best sexperts. That's when I learned how I got into somatics, and I became a sexological body worker, and I learnt from the Tantra people and various other spiritual sexuality traditions. And while I'm so grateful for everything that I learnt, it wasn't answering what I was experiencing. All of these traditions were trying to focus on being really present with your senses and your partner to get to these ecstatic states. None of them was following the smut like a treasure map to these states like I was. And I was like, what is going on here? How are our taboo sexual fantasies so magical? What is happening, and why isn't everyone talking about it? So this is what got me on my path to working out the magic, the value, and my own new theory about why we have sexual fantasies and the meaning behind them.
Mm-hmm. This is why it's so interesting to me.
I want to give you a chance to...
to chime in. Yeah, no, this is so interesting to me because I haven't really, I'm way less, in this. This might be a bit more well known now, but no one's really talking about this. Like you said, even now, it's all about sensation and being totally present with what's happening. And there's all these different seemingly spiritual techniques in the context of sex, hacking into some of these states. But I don't usually, pretty much all the time, the attitude towards smut, as you called it, is negative. It's, there's something wrong there, there's something to fix, something to heal. This is from some trauma in the past. There's something, that's the general attitude that most people have. Even people that I meet a lot of, I'm in Peru, plant medicine metropolis. And so you meet a lot of fairly open people, but even here, there can be, you can even see there can be this certain closed mindedness. I don't know how else to describe it around, say, stuff like this. So this is why it's so interesting to me. I don't really have anything other than that to say, but it's very interesting. And I know you've got, this led to you to develop a method. There's a method to this madness that you figured out. There is a method to this madness. What's this method?
Well, I call it the divinery method because after I didn't stay in the country town newspaper zone, I ended up doing all sorts of things all around Australia, but eventually setting up a play space in Sydney, and that had multiple different rooms. There was a cross-dressing room, there was a dungeon, there was a sensual massage and bedroom area. There was all sorts of different. There was domestic discipline area. So it was like this place that was a theatre of the erotic psyche, where we could play anything in there. And I had a red velvet couch that people would come and sit on, and we'd talk about their desires and their fantasies before we'd begin. And one of my clients who came and played here, actually, he named my play space. He said, you know what? Every time I come here, I feel like I am... this is a combination of two clients, actually. One came up with the name and one... Yeah, anyway, never mind. I'm merging them together as one person. Okay, so you can do that when you tell stories.
Uh-huh.
He called it the divinery because he felt like he was divining every time, like he's looking through, the divining stick's looking for water. He felt like he was divining his erotic self every time he came there and discovering more treasure. Also, it's because my last name, divine. So ever since then, it's just been nicknamed by everyone the divinery. And this is the method that I used in there when I sat them down on my red velvet couch and I asked them about their sexual fantasies and their peak experiences. And I listened. And I didn't just listen to I learned very quickly it's not effective to just try and live out somebody's sexual fantasy the way it is in their mind's eye. It doesn't actually satisfy them in the way that they think it would. It's much more important to hear the actual story narrative and the psychological mechanisms inside the fantasy and bring those out of our heads and into our bodies through the theatre of consensual play and see where we go with that. Where does that lead? And it was a radical thing to trust their fantasy was right. Like you said before, like your desire just bubbled up out of you. You didn't consciously choose to have that desire. You consciously chose to interact with it, but it just arrived from somewhere unconscious into your awareness. I think there's always a reason for that. And if I trusted that, like there's just like it can be uncomfortable to trust that our rage is right. It's uncomfortable to trust that our desire is right. But just like we don't let the rage run rampage, we learn how to embody it, interact it, hear its voice, hear what it's actually trying to say. Same with desire. So if I listen to those sexual fantasies, and then I would create something from there, a play experience. And even though they had literally just told me their sexual fantasy, they were always surprised. They were always like, whoa, how did you know? That's exactly what I've been trying to experience my whole life. I finally found it. What is that? What is that? So, bless them. That was such fun to be part of that reaction. I tell you what.